In today's video, we're going to be going over my top 10 favorite homebrew rules that I actually use in my campaigns. So let's get to it. Number 1, inspiration. The rules is written for inspiration I don't really like, so I made some adjustments to it. One of the issues I have with inspiration is they don't stack. So if somebody does something awesome, they get inspiration, but then there's never an opportunity for them to use it. They do something else awesome and you want to give them more inspiration. They already have one, so it just doesn't really work that way. So I created a inspiration point system where it continues to stack and it crosses over between sections. Now, just giving advantage would be kind of strong, so instead it works like a bardic inspiration where they get added d6 to their roll. Or they can use 2 inspiration points, roll another d20, and then pick the highest roll. Now, they have to make this decision before they use any of their luck points. They cannot roll an additional d20 and then add a d6 to it. They can only do one or the other. The next thing that I do is I actually have my players give out inspiration to the other players. So every session, they get to give 1 inspiration out to another player. This helps me a lot because one of the issues I have with inspiration is I constantly forget to give it out. We'll get to the end of the session and I realize that people did awesome stuff and I meant to give them inspiration, but I just forgot. And they kind of get to reward each other and compliment each other on awesome role playing or just fun moments. Number 2, the luck check. The luck check is really if I don't feel like arbitrarily just saying, yes, something happens, no, it doesn't. And instead, I want to let the players roll for it, but a skill doesn't really fall into this. For example, if a beggar that they're talking to has the information they're looking for. This happened a few sessions ago when they were looking for some information, and I didn't plan on the beggars having it, but I didn't want to just say no, especially after they were rolling really good. They had bribed the beggars, and so I decided to instead have the players roll a d20, and on a 15 and up, the beggars would have the information they were looking for, at least some of it. And so they rolled a 17, the beggars had some of that information. You could also do this if a player's looking for something somewhat rare in a shop and you don't want to decide whether it's there or not. You want to just have them roll for it. You can have them roll the luck check to see if the shop has the item they're looking for. I like this system a lot more because it's not just me randomly deciding if they're finding what they're looking for or not. They get a roll for it and it adds a little bit more drama. Number 3, crit damage. Picture this. You swing your great axe at your enemy. You roll an 18 on the dice, and before you can even do the math, your dungeon master's already told you that it's a hit and to roll for damage. You roll a 12 on your damage die, and then with the +4 that you have from your strength modifier, you deal 16 damage with that blow. But you have an extra attack, so you roll another attack, and it's a nat 20. Some of the other players at the table might even cheer. You're excited to see this damage. You roll your damage dice, and it's a 1 and a 3. With your +4 modifier, you do 8 damage with that attack, which was half the damage of your non-crit. That just doesn't feel bad. That is so disappointing for me. So I have a really quick and easy fix to this. Whatever the additional dice you roll for the crit damage, just max it out. Feels really good for the players. It does mean the crits are doing quite a bit of damage, but that's the whole point. It's a critical hit. You're finding that soft spot in their armor. So I like them to feel good. For the person that rolls the crit, it should not feel good for the person that's getting hit by it. Now, this does also apply to the monsters. Number 4, flanking. I like the concept of flanking, really everything about it, with the exception of that it just gives advantage. I feel like everything in D&D just gives advantage, and because they don't stack, it oftentimes gets wasted, and especially if you have 5 things giving you advantage, 1 thing giving you disadvantage, it's just a net 0, no effect. So when you're flanking, instead of getting advantage, you get a +2, makes things really easy. If you want, you can have it be an additional +1 for every additional person that's there. So when a 3rd person comes up, it's now a +3. When a 4th person comes up, it's +4. I wouldn't go much beyond a +4. Number 5, resurrection. I'm not going to talk too much about this one because I just did a video on it. If you want to go see the full video, you can click up here and go check it out. But basically, death is a big thing in D&D, and resurrection should also be a big deal. It shouldn't just happen, so I turn it into a skill challenge. All right, we're halfway through this list. If you're getting any enjoyment out of this or any value out of it, please give it a thumbs up. Weapon modifications. The only difference between different weapons is the damage die that is used, and that can feel kind of plain. One of them is when you land a crit, you'll roll an extra damage dice for that weapon. The idea being is with certain big weapons, if you land it in a soft spot of their armor, it should do more damage. Another modification is certain weapons might crit on a lower roll. This would be more dagger style weapons where you're purposely aiming for soft spots in the armor. It's not going to do any more damage when you land a crit, but maybe you'll get those crits more often. This helps make some weapons feel a little bit more unique and not so plain. Number 7, sprinting. Sprinting is where if you dedicate your entire turn to running in a straight line, you get to run at triple your speed. I know some people do this 5 times your speed. You can decide what it is exactly, but the idea being that if you're not using your actions, bonus actions, anything, you're just moving in a straight line, you should be able to go a lot faster. This doesn't come up too much, but it is nice to have if players are trying to get into the fight. They were all spread out, a fight breaks out at the front of it, the person in the back needs to spend 2 turns running all the way up to get into range. It's not the most fun for them. If they get to do that in 1 turn because they can just sprint up there, feels a lot better. Number 8, I know a guy. We use the I know a guy rule. This basically means that a player can make up an NPC that you'll have to act out. We mostly use it if they're needing information and they don't know where to go. They might say, I know a guy who can figure out how to get us into the castle. Something of that nature. It's usually pretty fun because the players get to create an NPC and then me as the dungeon master, I need to bring it to life and act it out. And they will sometimes put me in some ridiculous spots, but it's pretty much always a good time. Number 9, attacks of opportunity. A lot of players don't get to use their reactions very much, and if they do, it's going to just be for an attack of opportunity, and the only way to get it really is if somebody runs away from you. I added a couple more things to this so that they come up a little bit more often. So standing up from prone, you would get an attack of opportunity if you don't disengage or anything like that. Also, interacting with any items or devices that are somewhat complex. For example, picking a lock, you would give up an attack of opportunity. And even opening some doors, I say, gives an attack of opportunity, especially if it's a heavier door, because you have to let your guard down to interact with that object. I don't give attacks of opportunity for spellcasters casting a spell with a somatic component. That was discussed, but I don't really want to nerf spellcasters that much as they're already kind of squishy. If you hate spellcasters and want them to die, have them give an attack of opportunity every time they cast a spell with a somatic component. Wouldn't recommend though. Drinking a potion though might give an attack of opportunity as they have to drink a potion, so it might be somewhat challenging to do that while also keeping your guard up. Number 10, rests. Short rest, I dropped the length down to about 10 to 20 minutes. Basically, whenever the characters have a chance to actually take a short break, they get a benefit from the short break. Now, they can still only benefit from a short rest about 2 times a day, so it's not like they're doing it all of the time, but they can do it a bit quicker. Then with long rests, it still takes the same amount of time, but they don't heal from a long rest. Instead, they get half of their hit dice back, and they can use as many of them as they want to heal up. They still get all of their spell slots and all of the regular things from a long rest. They just don't heal from it and only get half of their hit dice. They also don't lose any levels of exhaustion from a long rest. Then there is a full rest, which means they have to take a full 24 hours without doing any strenuous physical activity. A long rest will bring them up to full HP. They'll have all of their hit dice, then they'll lose 1 level of exhaustion on a full rest. I nerfed the long rest because I wanted the characters to have to take a day every so often for a little bit of R&R, and that kind of just helps encourage that, where they're not trying to jump straight into fight after fight after fight. Don't get me wrong, they still do, but they do think about going into a town and spending a day shopping and just kind of relaxing for a day every so often, and then it helps bring out a little bit of role play from time to time. Alright, if you enjoyed this video, again, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for some more D&D content. As always, leave any comments below if there's any videos that you'd like to see in the future, and I'll see you next time.